Hello and welcome. My name is Gabriel Karandishowski, and I'm the editor of the Global Ambitions Revolution in Motion magazine. This video interview is a preview of what you can find in the full magazine. This is fully intended to pique your curiosity. Today, I'm joined by Johan Botha, director at Folio Online. Johan is a seasoned African language expert and localization strategist with 20 plus years of experience. A director at Folio Online and co-founder of the Association of Language Companies in Africa, he champions ethical, tech-enabled solutions across global and African markets. Johan wrote an article for the magazine titled Progress Comes From Within. Johan, thank you for being here. This is a very compelling title, Progress Comes From Within. It was an early idea that emerged in our discussions when shaping the contents of the article, the concept of progress coming from within. Can you elaborate on what this means to you personally, but also in the context of language services in Africa?
I've always believed that you shouldn't wait around for something to fall into your lap. If you want something done, often it's good to get collaboration, but often it's good to start by yourselves, deciding what you want to do in your work and so on, and making it happen. So in the context of the African localization industry, I think we've sort of waiting around for, especially now with AI happening, waiting around for a tool to land in your lap that's going to work for you is not gonna work. And often, if a tool does land in your lap, it's not fit for your purpose. So, uh, building progress, building locally instead of waiting for an outside investment. And I think it is using the African individual, not just in the localization industry, the individual in Africa. We're very resilient. We, due to infrastructure and other issues, we're used to innovation that works for us. So at the moment, there are global association, global organizations, global tech, global everything that's sometimes tailored. You get a tool or something that comes from Asia. It's using high bandwidth. It's using lots of bells and whistles, lots of code and so on. It only works on a PC. And you say, listen, that's not going to work for me. So let me sit around and wait for something else that works, or let me go and build a low code tool that's low on bandwidth, takes into consideration the infrastructural challenges. So it's making things happen, taking the old saying, taking the bull by the horns. Because in my experience, in my professional life especially, volunteering and doing things myself has proven a lot more beneficial than just waiting for something to happen.
In your article, you're writing a little bit about myth busting, and you've touched on this just now. The idea of companies coming in and copy pasting whatever works with AI in their environment in the global north and thinking it will work for Africa. You address this in the article. Why is this such a dangerous and potentially damaging idea?
I think when I first started my career, there was sort of the unknown Africa, and you get something like, I need one language for the whole of Africa, which didn't work. And it's got a lot better, and people became clued up on languages and so on. But now we are again in AI hype and revolution. Let's call it a revolution, where people again come and say, we've got this humongous language model and I want to use it on your country, and it must work for all of your languages and so on. And that's just not going to work. Many times, if you develop a language model, let's say ChatGPT or GPT or one of the others, it's very broad. Its cultural nuances aren't there. It's often biased against African countries. It hallucinates against, often to the detriment of the people here. I think the copy and paste AI myth for Africa is very real. I've built for my company in New York, I've built this tool and I want to just I'll give you a username and password, just start using it for your country. And that's just not going to work. So we were unfortunately, moving back to where at the beginning people didn't know what language to use for Africa. So they step back and say, I'm not going to do anything. So, because I don't know. So I think what works with Africa is more hyper specialized models, small language models that's showing promise, getting insight from the actual people that you are getting the so-called seat at the table, getting insight into, will this solution or business or whatever tailoring thing that you want to do in Africa, will this actually work in your country? You have a model that's trained on a African language, let's say that hyper specialized model. Well, is that model taking into consideration other cultural groups in the country? Is it built for purpose, fit for purpose? So I think at the moment, the one size fits all is a problem. One thing that I do want to mention, and people have mentioned that to me when I say this, is yes, I understand that you can't have a language model or some automation or something that's customized for every single individual answer. It's just too expensive. But I think a lot can be done by just getting a few insights into something, tweaking things here and there to make it work for the actual African context that you want to do it. And often it's just deactivating let's say you have a TMS, just deactivating a feature that will never be used in Africa. So, and that costs nothing. So it's just, and that makes the tool that people feel like they are being heard, and whatever you want to market or do is going to work much better than just forcing it from the top down.
Still lots to learn about doing business in Africa and what works. Thank you for doing your bit and highlighting that. Johan, you also have a role with the Association of Language Companies in Africa, or ALCA. There is a conference coming up soon on August 28 and 29. Can you tell us a little bit about how important ALCA's work is to building relationships between the varied African communities?
It's, as you said, it's less than a week away, so lots going on at the moment, crazy busy. But it was created 3 years ago, and we had an online conference, a virtual conference last year that was very well attended. We always say, if you want to have that personal touch, try and get a in-person conference. So we decided on Cape Town. I mean, obviously Cape Town. I work here, but it's also the best city in the world, if I can say that. But we created the program to suit a wide variety of audiences. So yes, we are a language, or ALCA is a language service provider based company, but we've always thought that the industry in Africa is I mentioned that as well, is very siloed. The different regions are doing their thing, not really knowing what the other one is doing. So we're not sharing solutions to issues. We're not working together in the betterment and advancement and economical advancement for language service providers or language companies in Africa. And I think the ALCA is a way to try and get a unified voice or a platform where people, even the small guy, can come and become a member and get access to resources and training and report and just advice. We've got a mentoring program that's doing work very well. So it's just having people now come together, tech companies, and we have people for machine translation that's building some of those specialized machine translation models that I spoke about, getting insights from them, because that's also the other thing is the tech industry and the localization industry, actually globally, but especially in Africa, I don't see them working together enough. So It's getting association ready, getting conference ready, reaching out to those people that's building the tech, reaching out to the people in the localization industry to come together in the same room, discuss some solutions. Where can we work together? And just also just discussing, because my problem in South Africa might be your problem in Nigeria. And I've solved it here, or you've solved it there. Let's get together and just build things, make it better. And I always find, because I've been volunteering for many years in industry, global associations, I've seen the value that an association can bring. Sometimes it's very hard for the single lonely voice to make changes and get traction and change regulation and pricing and all of those things. Sometimes it's much easier if you have a unified voice that can address. You have an association with many members, and that association can then reach out to whoever and say, listen, this is what we want. Let's get a seat at the table. So yeah, very interesting, a bit stressful to have it done, but I'm looking forward.
I'm sure it's going to be great. Johan, why should people read your article?
I won't be so bold as to say that I have all the answers, but I think it's a start, especially this year and the beginning of last year, at the end of last year. I've seen people showing a more interest. Obviously, AI is part of it, is showing interest in getting back into Africa. And they are now actually realizing that you might need people from Africa to get into Africa. I think it's just starting in my own short way. Let's say that seeing that things aren't working as well as they should, and trying doing that internal, getting progress from within, and saying to people, let me write a few things, let me appear on a few talks. Let's see if I can do my little bit to help the conversation along and get things working. Let's see if we can help one person to learn more and perhaps advancing the industry. That's more than enough for me.
Thank you, Johan. And thank you for watching, folks. Stay tuned for more previews of what's to come in the full Global Ambitions Revolution in Motion magazine coming out at the beginning of September.